Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a video about hydroponics and everything that you need in order to get started with it. This is going to be a general overview of all the topics, and then we're going to go into depth about each one of those in later videos. If you know your Latin prefixes, you know that hydro means water, and therefore we're going to be growing in water. Well, the exact thing that we're going to be doing is called aeroponics. The general term for growing using water is still going to be hydroponics. So we are still using air and water. However, using hydroponics, you're mainly using fish byproducts for that, and for aeroponics, you're using synthetic chemicals such as
Grow Big for Hydroponics by Fox Farms, Bloom Boost by Fox Farms, and Big Bloom by Fox Farms are the ones that I use. There's of course general hydroponics, and those work really well as well. For today's experiment, all we're going to need is some Hydroton or Leca pellets. We're going to need our Grow Big hydroponics, specifically this blue bottle and not this green one, in ground, and it only binds to in-ground soil mediums, and this it binds to your plant's roots through water medium. Before we go too far, I'm going to explain to you what each one of these bottles individually does. Starting with Grow Big. Grow Big has these numbers at the bottom. It is 3, 2, 6. 3 represents the amount of nitrogen. The 2 represents phosphorus, and the 6 represents potassium, or NPK. Better remember that because we will be coming back to that. Let's just start off with only this, because this is the only thing that the plants need besides water in order to start growing and growing well. As well as this provides slight macronutrients in forms of bad guano and earthworm castings. This is 100% organic, and it is not synthetically derived. This is Cultivation Nation Bloom Boost. So if your plants are struggling to get any kind of blooming going, this is what you would put onto them. And the reason for that is you can see there's 0 nitrogen in there and only P and K, which is responsible for blooming and flowering. The standard syringe maxes out about 10 milliliters or 2 teaspoons, which is ideal because that is our general feeding for Grow Big. While my clean water is filling up, I'm going to show you guys why it is important to not use city tap and to use rainwater or using a reverse osmosis system. Hydroponics is more of a science than it is gardening. Here is the measurements that you need in order to make sure that your plants are actually getting exactly what they need. They are on the back right here. And it says for every 10 milliliters or every 4 liters of water. That is for general feeding. So put in 10 milliliters into 4 liters of water. In order to accurately read what our plants are using and how much nutrients there is in this water, we use this special device called a ppm reader and a pH meter. This also has a different measurements. You can measure electrical conductivity, but ppms are easier to understand. It's parts per million, or how many dissolved solids are in that water. So let's see how many dissolved solids are in my filtered water. This is not city tap. This is water that I had gone through in a reverse osmosis system, meaning it took out all the heavy metals, all the chlorine, and the fluoride. Currently we're sitting at 14. Currently it only has 4 gallons in it. That translates to about 15.12 liters. So in theory we would need 30 milliliters or around there. However, this tends to burn the plants, so we want to scale it up, but we want to not start off at the maximum general feeding. These tend to be very non-conservative measurements in order for you to be buying more of the hydroponic fluids, but you really only need to put in as much as it takes for your plant to grow, and that is where our ppms and pH comes in. Now let's try the city tap water. 158 part per million. That is almost 10 times more than my water. Why is it important for me to know all these measurements? Doesn't the general feeding already tell you exactly how much to put in? You don't have to see all that. You kind of do, because as I said previously, they overstate how much you need to feed your plants. And if you overfeed them, it will result in burning. Also in the general directions used right here says keep your water between 5.8 and 6.3 on the pH scale. So what do we do whenever it tells us that our measurement of pH is 7, but we need to go between 5.8 and 6.5. Got some pH down, and the reason it's in the bag is because I don't feel like having to wash my hands thrice. It is super corrosive, and you need to make sure you're wearing gloves. The reason I love Fox Farms is because I can just add the proper amount of nutrients into the mix and it will pH balance itself. So let's measure out. We're gonna start with just about 20 milliliters at first, so that is 2 syringefuls. That's 9. Over 10. There we go. So perfectly 10. You need to make sure that the syringe is all the way into the water with the tip, or else you might get splashed back. You might hurt your eyesight. You really want to avoid any kind of splashing. If it gets into your eyes, please, please, please rinse it off. Rinse it out. If it gets on your skin, time to take the measurements. Immediately you start seeing the ppm rise and the pH start to fall into optimal ranges. The pH is already within its exact optimal range of 5.8 to 6.8. And if it is slightly lower, it's not the end of the world. We'll still be adding more stuff later. However, if you go too low on the pH scale, this is one of the final steps. This is the same for all hydroponic setups, and that is just getting a net cup, filling it with Hydroton, and then having a shoelace or anything that can wick up water going down into it in order for the plant to be able to get water and nutrients before its roots are established. After that, we are placing it in and just letting nature take over. You can also add a little humidity dome in order for the seedlings to do better. However, it is not fully necessarily for certain things, but it will greatly help you. Your setting up is called the Kratky method. It requires no pumps, no air stones, and it really only requires you to have a container for your nutrients, your nutrient mix, and your plant in Hydroton. Dill is currently being grown using the Kratky method, and it is best to do in something opaque that does not let light in because it will grow algae if it's transparent. If you want to get fancier with it, this is a DWC system and it is using sprinklers. The roots are growing down towards there and it is set on a timer with irrigation, with a pump, and it is currently misting the roots. You as a human have something in common with the roots of all these plants, and that is the fact that we need oxygen in order to nod. If your plant is fully submerged in water, it will rot and it will die. So how are we going to grow them in water again? When it comes to the Kratky method, it is relatively simple. It gets its oxygen from this top layer, and it gets its nutrients from this bottom layer. It originally starts up here, the plant drinks it until there is enough air right here, so that way the roots have enough oxygenation. As for the DWC, as you guys have seen, the roots were suspended in mid-air. They're just floating in the air. There's no way that they could possibly drown until they reach the bottom of the reservoir. And once they do reach the bottom of the reservoir, I throw in air stones, which is the same stuff that you use for fish in order to oxygenate the environment. It creates little tiny bubbles that way float up to the surface, giving a little bit of a pop, and you can use that instead of a pump in certain scenarios. However, I use that to oxygenate the environment in order to not get anaerobic roots. That'll be that for the general overview. On the next video, we're gonna be going in depth on one or two of those topics. So make sure you let me know which part you were confused most about, and we'll review it on the next time.